absolutely crazy news coming out of Chicago and Illinois. Washington, D.C. as a Twitter as President Trump calls a roundtable on Antifa and these protests across the United States. We have people like Elon Musk chiming in, talking about what Doge has found. And yes, found millions and millions, lots of millions of dollars going into these protests from federal taxpayers. We're going to talk about what President Trump is now hinting at doing next, what it will look like for the Insurrection Act to be invoked, and what that will allow President Trump to do, and what will happen next to these insurrection-y mayors and governors. Let's just say it's not going to go well for them. We got a lot to talk about. We're going to get into some law here, and we're also going to get you up to date on the latest insanity that's happening out there. All right, friends, let's get into it. Welcome to the Poplar Report. I'm Steve Poplar. I'm an accountant by trade, and these are the things you will not hear on the mainstream media. Mainstream media thinks that that Pritzker and was it Johnson are standing up for humanity. That's what Brandon Johnson said. Mayor Brandon Johnson said that he is defending humanity from President Trump. Yeah, well, since he's doing something so important, we should just let him do his thing. Setting up ICE-free zones. Now, whenever you have a mayor starting to say that federal law can't be enforced in certain areas, how is that not insurrection? The federal government decides where federal law applies. I mean, you don't get to decide that as mayor. You don't get to decide, like, murder is legal in these 3 blocks over here. The FBI will not prosecute. We won't prosecute. Murder is legal there. That's like The Purge. I mean, they made movies about that, right? I mean, that's just downright insanity. Like, you can't just say federal officers won't arrest you in certain areas of the city. Like, that is absolutely insane. And yet, this is what this dude is getting on CNN and spouting this insanity. Defending humanity from Trump. Wow. Talk about being over the top. All right, so President Trump has started using the word insurrection. So I'm not the first one to use it. I'm not the first one to start talking about that kind of thing. President Trump has very intentionally dropped the word insurrection several times in the last couple of days. And a lot of constitutional scholars and people out there who know what's what are saying this isn't an accident. He is hinting at the fact that he will use the Insurrection Act. This is a series of bills, series of laws passed between 1792 and 1871. So not exactly one bill, it's not just one, it's a whole bunch. But when you put them all together, basically it allows the federal government, and particularly President of the United States, to deploy military troops. We're not talking about National Guard now. We're talking about Marines, Army, even Air Force assets against civilian targets to search, to arrest, and to use deadly force against people who are actively resisting or breaking federal laws. Now, when you start thinking through what does that mean? It means that Marines could go in to Chicago like they went into Fallujah. Could they go door to door without warrants? Yeah, they could do that. And that may sound pretty extreme to you, and surely it is. And, I think a lot of us have to look at this and go, what if the shoe is on the other foot, right? Perhaps you're like me and you're on this foot and you're like, these people, I don't agree with them. And they're about to get stomped by the boot heel of the federal government. Perhaps you're on the other side. Perhaps you're in agreement with these folks, and you think that federal law shouldn't be enforced, and I don't really understand all of it, honestly. I used to understand the Democratic perspective, but the Democratic perspective now recently is just racist, homophobic, transphobic slurs that get slung at people, and basically, if you're not them, then you're the enemy, for no real discernible reason. It's basically just a bunch of verbal attacks. I mean, if we were to take President Clinton, Bill Clinton, there wasn't another President Clinton, take Bill Clinton's policies and what he did in office, and you compare them to President Trump, there really isn't a difference. Like, they're pretty stinking similar. So, exactly how is President Trump, other than him saying mean things to people that hurt people's feelings, how exactly is he different than a Democratic platform of 30 years ago? Like, he isn't different. So really, when it comes down to it, the ideological principles, explain it to me. If you're a Democrat, hop down in the comments and explain to me. Now, if you're like, these crazy people hijacked our party and the Bill Clinton days of old, we long for them. And so we're kind of happy with President Trump, but we don't like the fact that he has the wrong letter behind his name. I mean, if that's your perspective, let me know down in the comments down below. If you can rationally explain to me otherwise, please do. But I'm doing my best. Anyway, so these people whose platform seems to be to protect humanity, defending humanity from President Trump and his mean words and stuff, I don't know. That's the way this thing is going right now. We're fast approaching federal troops being deployed to put down the insurrection in Chicago. And what do you think happens to Mayor Johnson when the federal troops show up and start knocking heads? The leader of the insurrection is going to end up in jail. Is going to end up in jail. You cannot. Now you say, Steve, what exactly has he done that's illegal? He is threatening, and so this is why we say borderline insurrection. He's threatening, so he's established these ice-free zones, and he's threatening to arrest federal officers who break city laws. And that's the key there. He establishes ice-free zones. Federal officers can't go to these areas. Then he's going to arrest them for going to those areas. If he does that, that will be an act of insurrection. Imagine me saying, you know what? The IRS doesn't have rule over me. My neighbor, fine. Okay, but the IRS doesn't. My taxes or my income is IRS free zone. And you can imagine how that would go. And then when the IRS agents show up at my house to confiscate things, I arrest them. Tell me what I just did. I mean, that's, and it's not different for a city. A city doing the same thing as what I just described is, no, you can't do that. I can't arrest federal officers for breaking my rules, and neither can the city of Chicago. So this is a serious, serious point, especially when those federal officers are following federal orders. You can't arrest them for doing their lawful duty. And yet that's exactly what Mayor Brandon Johnson is planning on doing. So we'll see how that goes. Elon Musk has come out there and has said during the course of their investigations over $100 million of U.S. taxpayer money went to pro-Hamas and radical Islamic groups focused on protest. Now, how many of these millions and millions of dollars went to Antifa-type organizations, dozens of radical organizations, not just the decentralized Antifa organization, but dozens of other radical organizations that have received more than $100 million from Riot Inc. investors. This is Seamus Brunner, Director of Research of the Government Accountability Institute. So basically, President Trump had a roundtable of people to come and share their research on Antifa, and Elon Musk chiming in on Twitter, saying basically that way more than $100 million of U.S. taxpayer money has gone into this, and he has had access through the Doge review that way more than $100 million has gone and been laundered by the Democrats into this protest organization that they have built around the country. I remember years back, I was looking at jobs on Craigslist or whatever. This was way back. I want to say it was more like, it was like 2020 or like 2018, 16, something like that. Anyway, but basically it was just these like, get paid to make a difference. And it had high dollar value on the hourly rate, and didn't really have much more, make a difference for these type of causes, green, for, Democratic stuff. And these job postings showed up all over the country. And that's where they really networked. They brought on the original people, and then they had them invite their friends. And those friends would come out to the protests and then get signed up, and they get paid to protest. That's the people that got bussed around the country. We have a permanent professional protest group / conference goers, and people like Tony Cirugo did this. I mean, they tracked the cell phones going from one event, protest, to the next protest in a different city. They just get bussed there. Then they were showing up at Kamala rallies, and they were doing this and that. And it's just like this same group of people whose job it is to run around and cause problems and to protest and promote their candidates and all this kind of stuff like that. And it's not that's illegal in and of itself, except that this group of people has committed a whole lot of crimes. And when you have an organization funding people who are committing a whole lot of crimes, that's a RICO thing where you, the money giver, are responsible for the crimes that people getting paid your money committed. Now that's just already in the books, legal stuff happening, FBI investigations into Antifa. But now we have the Insurrection Act being raised up here now too. Like I said, federal troops deployed to use policing power and military power in order to put down an insurrection. This is what happened during the Civil War. Federal troops went into the Confederate States and waged war against the southern states to bring them back into the Union by force. That isn't different than what's happening in Chicago today. Chicago's like, we want to be independent. We don't want to have a federal government. We don't want the federal government to do certain things. We are in charge of the federal government. Now, again, I kind of get where they're coming from. And if the shoe is on the other foot, I could see us being on that side saying, no, the federal government cannot come and enforce their Second Amendment violations. Now, the crux here is that we would be upset that they're violating the Constitution. and holding them accountable for that. These people, they're upset that the federal government is upholding the Constitution and enforcing the Constitution. That's the difference. That's the difference. What we would be doing is trying to restore the lawful legality of things, and they are trying to upset the legality of things. They're trying to say that President Trump doing what President Bill Clinton did, what George W. Bush did, what Obama did. Obama sent back way more people than President Trump ever has. So don't even give me that whole, it's totally false. Totally false. They suddenly want to import massive amounts of Democrats from across borders, and they think that that is the only way that they can retain or regain power. And so they're trying to do that no matter what it takes. They don't like the fact that over 1 million people have moved out of the United States and gone home. That has them in full-blown panic mode. And the fact that President Trump is threatening to do another census before the end of the decade census and do the census early to make adjustments to the congressional districts based on the fact that they're only counting U.S. citizens. That would shift as many as 20 House of Representatives seats from blue to red. That is massive. You give that kind of a majority in the House of Representatives, and things start changing pretty stinking rapidly. All right, so this is what's happening. The roundtable was a smashing success, looking into all of these different NGOs, George Soros, Open Society Network, the Arabella Foundation, the Tides Fishing Network, and others. We got Rockefeller, we got Ford, Buffett, we got Singham, and different organizations chipping in large amounts of money, and also these organizations pulling lots of federal funding. All right, friends, that's what we got going on out there, and things are getting spicy for sure. I do expect to see the Insurrection Act called up on Portland and Chicago in the coming weeks. There's going to be some major legal challenges to that because Democrats can't understand and certainly will not comply with presidents using laws that are on the books. Can't do it. Can't do it. Anyway, even though these laws were used to free the slaves in the United States during the Civil War, you got to remember, those were Democrats that had those slaves. Anyway, let's leave it at that. Thanks so much for joining with us. If you want to check out another video from this channel, there's one right up here. I'll see you over there, or I'll see you guys later. Steve Poplar of the Poplar Report out.